Hi, families of Holderness ninth graders. I'm Susie Cerrone. I'm the director of the Holderness Project Outreach Special Program. Special programs are a unique time in the Holderness experience because we're taking the classroom into a different environment. The ninth grade service trip to Philadelphia seeks to cultivate leadership skills through serving others. This picture is of last year's group. Mr. Hayward is working here, and we're outside of St. Barnabas Mission, which is one of our volunteer sites, which is a homeless shelter for women and children. There must be a transition here, as not everyone is working as hard as Mr. Hayward, but you may notice the first thing is that they're working outside and there's no snow, and that answers a little bit of our next question, which must be on everyone's mind: why Philadelphia? The goal of special programs is to stretch beyond our comfort zone. We're a small New England rural school, and we're reaching beyond New England to an urban environment. Just as we train our 11th graders in how to approach the environment of the woods and outback, we do a similar type of preparation and reinforcement to our 9th graders, because the interaction, the behavior, the way we hold ourselves on campus in rural New Hampshire is not exactly the way that you're going to be handling yourself outside of St. Barnabas Mission or in downtown Philadelphia. And so we believe that this is a really important part of the overall education. As a history teacher myself, I'm intrigued by the foundation of the country, and I think that there's a nice connection between that and the foundation of our own cultivation of leadership here at Holderness. And on a practical level, many of our families come from the Northeast, and we actually have a greater constituency from the Philadelphia area since we've done this trip, but it's a different place. It's a place that not everyone has been. So it's quite a lot of driving in the minibuses. And we'll travel on Monday, March 3rd, leaving Holderness School at 7:30 sharp, stopping in Hooksett for a little bit of a bathroom break. We take Route 3 to cut off the 93 traffic. We head on the Mass Pike for just a little bit until we hit 84. We'll stop for lunch just past Hartford in a town called Southington. Cross over the Tappan Zee Bridge so we avoid New York City. And we have one last stop on the thruway, I think around here. And then it comes sort of to a crawl as we head through a little bit of rush hour traffic at the end of the day. We usually hit Ardmore Presbyterian Church, which is just northwest of Philadelphia, at around 5 o'clock. 4:30 or 5 is our target. So it's 427 miles, which is 7 hours of actual just driving time. But it's also an experience where it's about a 5 students to every faculty ratio, which on campus we boast being 8-to-1, and so we have a lot more contact with kids. There's a lot more adult student contact on this trip. One of the best things about working on this trip is that we get to know all the students and our colleagues really well. So we have an ongoing joke about the pH of Philly. So anytime we talk to each other or write an email, everything is a pH. So let me introduce you to our Philadelphia family. This is our 8th year of the program, and our 8th year in working with St. Barnabas Mission, which is the homeless shelter, and Fairmount Parks. Our connection with St. Barnabas Mission is that we have an Episcopal affiliation to the Holderness School, and I reached out to Episcopal Community Services in Philadelphia, and they manage St. Barnabas. Our best contact there, Dana Barbary Newble, will be there. She'll be meeting us on the Monday night that we arrive, and she makes sure not only are we working, but we understand and humanize homelessness, and she's an amazing educator. This will also be our 8th year working in Fairmount Parks. The connection that we try to forge between this experiential learning process and the actual classroom is through the study of invasive species and biology. These are some steps at Wissahickon Park. Fairmount Parks has about 65 plus citywide parks. And these perhaps are the steps that Holderness students cleared a while back ago. They took several tons of mud off some steps and made them into usable spaces. And it's really interesting as we live in a very rural environment where we take sort of the outdoors and natural spaces for granted, to see how precious those are, to make them into usable, accessible spaces for city dwellers. The park system has a series of volunteer educators, and they make those connections for us. They talk about what the different invasive species could do to the city ecosystem. And over the years, the parks used to be their own entity, but because of the crash of 2008 and budget cuts, they really had to merge with Parks and Recreation. And so the outcome of that is Recreation takes sort of more of their resources, more of their time, so they need our volunteer services even more than ever. Now, 3 years ago, we were finding that sometimes the work at the mission was a little bit slow. And so 3 years ago, we reached out and we added Phil Abundance and their Hunger Relief Center, which is actually near like the Wachovia Center where the Phillies play, near the airport. And we work at there, and we pack hunger relief packages, and those go to families who are not homeless, but they can't afford, for some reason, they can't afford to sort of get through the next couple days to feed their families. They're part of the greater Feed America project, and you may have seen advertisements with Matt Damon promoting that on television. And they also do provide food for places like ECS and all of its programs, including St. Barnabas. They really appeal to Holderness style. They keep track of everything that we pack. And yes, Holderness School has set records for numbers of boxes or pounds of meat that we've packed in a time. So they appeal to our hard work ethic and our competitive nature. So that's really fun. Here's a couple pictures of Ardmore. We stay at Ardmore Presbyterian Church, and this is actually the big church part, but they have a rec hall, which is called Fellowship Hall. It has an expando wall, so what you're seeing is where everybody eats and where we convene. On the other side is where the boys sleep, with some of the brave male faculty leaders trying to always calm them down at night, which is always a challenge. In this picture, this is where we park, right in the parking lot. We have to get out of there by 8:30, or the preschool, this is the mural that sort of is the entrance to the preschool. The preschool car lineup would lock you in. You have to wait until about 9:15 to get out. So the timing is really important. And then in this corner, this is Union Square, which has a lot of shops. It's got some fancy shops. It's a good place to window shop. I would encourage your students to not go plan on buying everything, as we're trying to be conscious of, the impact that we're making. But this is just across the street, and people can go in some free time and shop there at times. And it's pretty close. And they're usually, it's a confined space, so it's not like people are just going off wherever. Here's the general overview of what our 2 weeks look like. First, I want to point out that we start with meetings and setup and education, and we end with meetings and reflection. And those are integral to making this sort of, rather than just a class trip, into a transformative experience. I'm taking you through, the 28th will be our last day of classes. We'll have meetings that evening. We'll have meetings in place of classes the next morning, and then it's a short weekend. We return until 3:30 in the afternoon. We report to Weld with our bags packed, and then everyone is sitting in the bus ready to go by 7:20 after eating. Everyone is required to eat breakfast on the 3rd. There's a lot more going on during these days than just volunteering, but we are working Tuesday through Saturday's afternoon shift, and then we are exploring the city. We're going to be welcome to a family's home. for dinner on Sunday. It's a good day to just rejuvenate. We're going to have a chapel service with Pastor James at Ardmore Presbyterian to refocus ourselves as we head into the last 2 days of volunteer time. We wake up on Wednesday the 12th, we pack the buses, and we travel safely all the way back to Holderness School, where we are often welcomed with cheering, artward bound sophomores who remember how nice it was to finally be back on campus after that long drive. The next day we have a couple more meetings, some feedback. We see the Outback folks come back, and then we all join for a chapel at 1:30, I believe, or 1 o'clock. And then students are dismissed. The program is over. March break, yay, starts right after chapel. A typical volunteer day is pretty packed, right? At breakfast, some people are setting up breakfast. Everyone makes his or her own lunch. We have to clean the bathrooms and halls and fellowship hall after because there's preschool coming in. We have a short morning meeting where we talk about some of the things happening that day, who's going to be writing the newsletter. We make a few jokes, and then we go by 8:30 so we don't get locked in by the preschool lineup. There's a morning volunteer block followed by lunch. Depending on the schedule that day, sometimes it's going to be on the bus headed to the next site. There's an after lunch volunteer block, and then depending on the schedule, people will go to the Y, which is actually in Haverford right now, to shower. There'll be about 6 students going to the afternoon program at St. Barbara's Mission to work with those children after school. And then we have a group who will report to the kitchen, cook dinner, we clean up. We have a slew of amazing activities that you will read all about. We prepare for bed, which means the girls retire upstairs to where they sleep in 2 separate classrooms. The boys get ready for bed downstairs, and by 10:30 it's lights out because we're doing the same thing the next day. How do we prepare? On Parents Weekend, we're going to publish a list. We're going to do a sock and underwear drive for the children and socks for the mothers as well at St. Barnabas Mission. To prepare for that volunteer site, they ask that we train every volunteer in universal precautions, things that would protect you from getting germs. And then, as I mentioned, on Monday night, Dana by Renewable will come and educate us further about the realities of homelessness and what might be a circumstance under which some people would have to resort to living in the shelter. Students are studying about invasive species in bio. And the only other thing is to look at the list of what to pack, make sure there's appropriate clothing for working outside in March. It could be 70 degrees, it could be 20 degrees. For Phil Abundance, we'll also, in addition to the sock and underwear drive, we'll ask for a few food donations. And 2 years ago, we did that in conjunction with the White Mountain Montessori School, which is an infant through kindergarten program that's on our campus, and where my Nico, who will be 5 during Project Outreach, and Matthew, who's almost 2, attend. What to pack? A few things for living. You do need a sleeping bag and a mattress because you're going to be on a tile floor. I suggest purchasing an air camping mattress, as this will be useful 2 years later for Outback. Many people choose to have air beds, and that is fine, but it must be a twin size only. You have to be aware that there's limited space, and you cannot have, the king mattress coming in and taking up everybody else's space. We also will not be sharing mattresses as generous as I know we all want to be. A pillow, toiletries, towel, hand sanitizer is always something good to take with them throughout the workday, and a small bag in case they need to throw all their stuff into the bus so that we can shower on the way home. Clothing, there should be work pants. If they're jeans, they should be sturdy jeans, not, leggings. Some sort of boots and sturdy shoe that can be workable in the mud and comfortable all day long. A waterproof coat, flip-flops perhaps for the shower or if it gets warm, sneakers 4 changes of clothes about. We can do laundry. A warm layer like a fleece jacket would be great, and a winter hat would be great as well. Students may bring their phones, and there are some stipulations. In the past, we were a phone-free zone, but we realized how helpful they can be when we go down to Philadelphia, how helpful it can be to be able to connect, but there are also huge distractions, and so we have guidelines. The students need to turn them in during the day, and there are only a few hours where they may use them once their work day is over, and they must turn them in before they go to bed. You can imagine the silliness that could ensue with a lot of kids all in one room with their phones, and we want to make sure that people are healthy and they're getting a lot of sleep. Students will be asked to reflect on a daily basis, and so they need to bring a notebook with enough pages that they can actually bring this back to school and read it, and a pen. They should actually consider a pleasure book. Some spending money is really helpful. I would say about $50 to $100. Please talk with your child. You know your kid. They should not be planning on shopping at every single store, but they might want a Starbucks or an ice cream every now and then. Please leave behind computers, iPads, expensive, anything, and also any clothing that's torn or just looks bad or doesn't display the values that would be reflected in the church where we're staying or any of the volunteer sites or our school in general. So here's the big question. How do we keep in touch with you? Through Holderness School mainly. Here's an example, a picture of our website, and all of the tweets and the blogs that are going to be posted. The new newsletter is going to be through a blog so that we can type it from anywhere. And those will be linked to the Holderness website. They will be updated constantly, and that we hope that you can feel like you know a lot about what's going on throughout the week and a half that we're down there. If you have any questions, some specifics, please contact me, Susie Cerrone at Holderness School. I'd be thrilled to talk with you about your child, about this trip. It's something I absolutely love. I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be a great year.